Welcome back to the Home Buyer's Experience. This is part 4, Contract to Closing. I'm Dave with the Bolduc Realty Group. In the first 3 parts of the video series, you got ready for your home search, you looked at some homes, and you crafted an offer to convince the seller that you're the best buyer. Now comes the part that makes people the most nervous and generates the most questions. In this final part of the series, we're going to talk about what happens once you've convinced the seller that you are the best buyer. If you haven't watched the first 3 parts of this video series, I highly recommend you check out the links in the description below. This video series brings the entire process together. I'm going to go through each item in the process in general order that it would occur if you are financing the deal. Cash deals are a little bit different, and I'll try to call that out as I go. Some items in the process can happen at any time. Some have to have certain things happen before that. So keep that in mind. Your mileage may vary. For the best results, make sure that you pick a solid team to work with and then follow their lead and work closely with them. The first part of the process I'm going to talk about is negotiation. Now that you've crafted that irresistible offer that's convinced the seller that you're the right buyer, the seller has 2 options. They can either accept the offer as you submitted it. If that's the case, you're off to the races. Or they can counter your offer with an offer of their own. If that happens, then you have 3 choices. You can accept their counteroffer, you can walk away from the deal, or you can counter back. I have seen this go on for a while, so just be aware that you can have that back and forth. In more balanced markets, that does happen a little bit more frequently. When markets are unbalanced, either the buyer or seller is in control of the market. It's typically more of a take it or leave it type of scenario. There might be a little bit of negotiation back and forth, but it's not a day or 2 days like I've seen in a more balanced market. Your real estate agent will guide you through this process. You should expect them to give you some recommendations, and then you make the final decision. Negotiation is a key skill for your agent, and you should look for it when you're picking your agent, as I talked about in that first part of this series. Unfortunately, negotiation of contracts and negotiation in general is a much bigger topic than what we can cover in this video. Comment down below if you want more information on negotiation, especially of real estate contracts. The second part that I want to talk about is the signed contract and the earnest money deposit. Once the seller has verbally accepted your offer, you need to get a signed contract as quickly as possible. Especially if there was a negotiation and terms have changed. You need to update the contract and get that new contract with the new terms signed. The sense of urgency is absolutely critical here. All real estate contracts in the state of Connecticut need to be written, so you don't have anything until you have that signed contract. Good example, I had a client, we had a verbal agreement from the seller on a contract. We did have some negotiation. I was writing up the offer, sent it over to the seller to be signed. In the middle, without telling us anything, they signed a contract from another buyer. I reached out to an attorney just to make sure we didn't have any leg to stand on. He said, nope, you need to have a written contract in the state of Connecticut in order to have a contract in the real estate world. While it wasn't the nicest thing that they did, they were perfectly within their rights and legality to do it. Make sure that you exercise that sense of urgency and get contracts signed as quickly as possible. When the contract is signed and received, your agent's going to send you a copy. They're also going to send a copy to the lender and to the attorney. The agent is also going to get the earnest money deposit to the listing agent so that they can deposit in their escrow account. This has to be done within 3 days of the contract, 3 banking days of the contract being signed. Your agent is going to manage this. I just want you to be aware of it. The third part of this that I want to talk about is inspections. Inspections and the time allotted for inspections are all spelled out in the contract that you negotiated. We talked about this in part 3, the offer. Once the contract is signed, you are on the clock. Your agent should have recommendations for home inspectors and other contractors that can help you out. You can also pick your own. Typically, you have about 10 to 14 days, but it is spelled out in the contract. You can request extensions. The seller's not obligated to approve them, though. Get your inspections done as soon as possible. Depending on the number and type of inspections that you put into the contract, you may have to do them over multiple days. While it's not required, I highly, highly recommend that you be there in person for each inspection. The value of being able to see the inspection happen, ask the inspector questions while you're in the house, it's not replaceable. Some reasons to get the inspection scheduled and completed as fast as possible, number one, Murphy's Law. Anything that can happen will happen. Last minute, maybe the seller gets sick and then you can't do the inspection. Have I had that happen? Maybe the home inspector or the person who's doing the work, they break down or they can't get there. I've had that happen. Maybe the power goes out. I've had that happen. Actually, what happened is a septic truck took down the power lines driving up to the house, so we couldn't do the well or the home inspections because there was no power in the house. That one was ugly. Some inspections take time. Radon, for example, takes 48 hours. And some test methods for radon require a lab to test the results and give you the results. That's at least another day. Third thing, inspection results may be inconclusive. There may be some contamination. This is typically radon or water testing, something like that. It's not. There could be other tests as well. You might have to repeat the test. The fourth, this is a problem that's found, and you have to make a decision right away if you wait until the end. Picture this. How would you feel if you were at the very end of your inspection period, the reports came back, and you find out there's some major problem? You don't know, are you going to ask for money? Are you going to ask them to fix it? Are you going to walk away? A lot of pressure. The fifth thing is peace of mind. There's already enough stress related to this process. Why add looming deadlines to the list? After the inspections are complete, you and your agent should go over the reports in detail. If you included an as-is addendum, the real decision here is, are you staying with the deal or are you walking away? If you didn't include an as-is addendum, you have to choose what you want to have addressed. And then you have to decide, do you want them to address it by giving you money so that you can fix it later? Or do you want them to have them fix it? Or the third option is you can just walk away. There are pros and cons to both options, having the seller fix it or you fixing it yourself. If you decide to get some money and fix it yourself, then yeah, you can control and make sure that it's done right, but you have to take on the inconvenience of having the repairs done and all these other things. If you have the seller do it, they have to take on the inconvenience and spend the time and the money, but you don't control how they get it done. As long as it's done in a workmanlike manner, it's okay. And I've had that happen as well. Once you and your agent consult and decide how you want to proceed, your agent is going to write up something called an inspection response. You're going to sign it and you're going to send it to the seller. Now, important point, the seller doesn't have to take what you say. They can negotiate back. They can say no. They can do whatever they want. So this is a negotiation. And until you come to a conclusion where you're both happy, there's a chance that the deal could die. And as I've said before, home inspection is typically where a deal is going to fail if it's going to fail at all. Once the final inspection agreement is in place, the attorney and the lender are notified so that you can move to the next step. The fourth part of this process that I want to talk about is the appraisal. The appraisal is typically ordered after the inspection is done and in good condition. Why? Because you pay for the appraisal, and there's no reason to order the appraisal if the deal is going to fall apart after the inspection. So lenders, they'll typically wait for the thumbs up for the inspection, and then they'll order the appraisal. This step is typically skipped on cash deals, and it also can be skipped if you have an appraisal waiver. Typically, the lender orders the appraisal and an appraiser is assigned. That appraiser contacts the listing agent to get access and do the appraisal. Your agent should be in contact with the lender and the listing agent to know what's going on. Sometimes the appraisal just happens. You hear about it from the lender and you never heard about anything else. Everybody communicates differently. Just be aware of that. There are two possible results of the appraisal. The first one is that the appraised value comes in at or above a value that's good for the lender. That value that's good for the lender depends on how much you're putting down, the purchase price, a few other things like that. In that case, you're good to go. You move on to the next step in the process. The other option, option two, is that the appraisal comes in below that value that's good for the lender. In that case, it's time to negotiate. To keep the deal alive, either the seller needs to take their price down, or you need to come to closing with more cash. If the deal does fall apart, you do get your earnest money back, but the money you spent on inspections, appraisal, they're not reimbursed. Low appraisals do happen, and it can be a very emotional situation. There is a chance that you could have a discussion with the appraiser and get them to change their valuation. It's very, very low. These guys are professionals. They do a very good job. They know what they're doing. If this does happen, consult with your lender. and your agent will take it from there. The fifth step in the process is title work. To be clear, the appraisal, title work, the underwriting, they can all be done around the same time. The appraisal follows the inspection and the title work follows the appraisal to save you money. There's no point in doing work if it isn't going to be needed. In Connecticut, all real estate transactions require an attorney to be involved. Title companies are not used in the state as closing agents. The attorney has a title search completed. What happens is they have someone go to the town hall to check all the land records. They're looking for a clear chain of ownership. They're also looking for any liens or any other claims on the property that could be an issue. If any exist, the seller needs to fix those issues before closing. If you close and then find those issues, it's your problem because you bought the house. If you're getting a mortgage, the lender is going to require you to get something called title insurance. I highly recommend that you get the title insurance that covers you as the buyer, because the title insurance the lender is going to make you get covers them. I bought a house a few years ago. I was working with the executrix as an estate. The owner passed away. His friend became the executrix of the estate. Unfortunately, she got ill and ended up passing away as well, and her sister had to step in. It was really sad because the lady was very nice and it was not an expected death. The sister knew almost nothing about the house. We closed the deal and moved forward. About a year later, I get a letter from the town saying, "Hey, you owe us $1,500 plus interest." For what? It was for a sewer lien that was supposed to be paid off when the house was sold. Well, because the estate didn't know about it, they didn't pay it off. And as you might have guessed, my title search also missed it. So I pulled out my title policy, which cost me about $200. The title company went in, contacted the town, addressed the whole thing, took care of the $1,500 plus the interest. I had to do nothing. So title insurance is well worth it. Definitely do it. The attorney also handles the assumption of a lease if there's a lease related to the solar panels, or if there's a lease related to like maybe a hot water heater, things like that. So they will take care of that as well. The sixth part in this process is underwriting. You're going to be working with the lender for this. You're also going to be working with the title on the title with the attorney. So you're going to be working with a couple different people at the same time. Completely normal. The lender handles any remaining underwriting that needs to occur. You are going to feel slightly violated by the time it's over. They go from stem to stern. They check everything. It is normal. It's part of the deal when you are getting a loan. This is not applicable for cash deals. A few tips. Stay in contact with the lender. More communication is better. The second one, send any requested information or documents immediately. Do not take time. The more quickly you respond, the more quickly you're going to get to that end point that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Discuss any financial decisions with your lender before taking action. This is the third one. I have a client, I was talking to him. They happened to mention, "Oh yeah, we're getting ready to head out to go buy some furniture." I was like, "What do you mean you're going to go buy furniture? What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to go look in some furniture for the new house." I said, "How are you planning on buying that?" So, "Oh, we're going to just open up an account at the furniture store." I said, "Might want to talk to your lender first." So they did. And the lender said, "Do not do that. You're going to blow up the whole deal." What happens is you go finance a bunch of a car, furniture, boat, whatever you want. People do this. They get excited and celebrate, and they end up blowing away their financial metrics, and then they can't get the loan, and you end up killing the deal. Talk to your lender before you do anything. They'll give you some guide rails. If you got to pay for gas, something like that, perfectly normal. But if you're making a big expenditure, talk to your lender. When your lender has completed the process, they're going to issue what's called a mortgage commitment. This is a key date in the contract. It is usually the last contingency that is released before you go to closing. This is your last escape clause. So once the lender says you are good to go, we're giving you mortgage commitment, you release that, you are going to closing. Let your agent and your attorney know when you do get that clear to close, or not clear to close, that mortgage commitment. The lender and attorney are going to work together in the background to make sure all the paperwork's together, everything's in line. That happens very close to the closing date. Once they're happy, they're going to issue what's called the clear to close. That is the final flag. You are ready to go to closing at that point. The agent is typically the last person to know that you have clear to close and that the closing date is scheduled. Please, once the attorney schedules the closing date, make sure you let your agent know. The seventh part of the process is a little administrative thing I like to call utilities. In this section, this is after you've got mortgage commitment, you're getting ready to close. What I do is I send an email to my clients to say, hey, don't forget to do these few things. Some of those things include notifying the post office, letting the utilities know that wherever you are, turn off the utilities, electric, gas, whatever. And wherever you're going, your new house, make sure you turn them on. It's important to do that. Utilities that you have to think about, electric, gas or oil, phone, internet, TV, things like that. The utilities that the attorneys take care of, water and sewer. Don't worry about those. The attorneys in Connecticut take care of those, and they'll tell you about that. Let the post office know that you're moving. Depending on what town you live in, you may also need to hire a trash removal company. Some towns have trash service, some don't. A week before closing seems to be the sweet spot to do this. If you do it too early and the deal falls apart, then you did a bunch of stuff for nothing and it creates a bunch of confusion. If you do it too late, you could arrive to a house with no power or no heat. The eighth part of this process is the walkthrough. This is close to the end here. The walkthrough should happen immediately before you go to closing. The same day. Not another day, not another week earlier, the same day. This is your absolute last chance to make sure everything's okay with the house before you sign a bunch of paperwork and take responsibility for everything. Things you should look at. The general condition of the house. Is it broom clean? Is it empty? Is there any new damage? Now, when I'm talking about new damage, if you noticed when you first saw the house and when you did the inspection that there was a little bit of sheetrock damage because a doorknob was hitting the wall, that's not new damage. A big scrape across the hardwood floor where they dragged out furniture that wasn't there before, a hole in the sheetrock because they bumped into it with something heavy, leaking pipe that wasn't leaking before, that's new damage. Make sure you understand that. The second thing, were the repairs from the inspection, if you negotiated any repairs, were they actually done? Got to verify this stuff. You don't want to find out later on that it wasn't because you'll have no recourse at that point. Third, are all the appliances and any other personal property that was part of the deal there? And is there anything that's there that shouldn't be there? I've had some experiences with that. I can tell you about it. The fourth, check the oil tank and the heating system, especially in the winter. The last thing you want to do is come back to a house that's frozen. It's got leaking pipes. It's a disaster. So you want to make sure that there's plenty of oil, that the heating system is on in the winter. Note any issues and call the attorney immediately. Your agent should be with you and they should be able to help you with this. The attorneys have the ball here on this. They're the ones that'll be communicating and working out any details. The agents are in a supporting role at that point. I can't emphasize this enough. Shit happens. You absolutely must have a trust but verify approach on this and be ready for issues to pop up. I've had exactly 0 deals go from all the way from the beginning to the end without having any issues. Sometimes the issues are really small, really simple to fix. Sometimes they blow up the deal, but they do happen. We can work through any issues as long as you're paying attention and we see them before you sign the paperwork. Once you go to the closing table and sign the documents, for better or worse, you own it. The final part of this process that I want to talk about is the closing. This is big. You're at the closing table signing paper. Make sure those wrists are nice and limber because you're going to be signing a lot. Cash deals usually have a lot less paperwork, so keep that in mind. Typically, you're going to go directly from the walkthrough to the closing table. Your agent should be there with you, and either the attorney or the agent should have keys and other things like that so you have access to the house. The attorney has the lead here. They've been working in the background with the lender to make sure all the paperwork is squared away. The attorney will go through all the paperwork with you and provide instructions. Ask questions during this time. Once you sign some key documents, those documents are going to be sent to the lender and they're going to process them. And then they're going to issue what's called a funding authorization. The money from the loan will be in the attorney's escrow account waiting on that funding authorization. The attorney can't issue the money without getting that funding authorization. Cash deals just doesn't apply. The money's there, it's yours. You can tell them to send it whenever you want. While that's all happening, the attorney is going to continue reviewing documents with you and having you sign them. I wasn't kidding about signing a lot of documents. The attorney was going to provide copies of all these documents at the end, so don't worry about that. Your attorney and the seller's attorney have been in contact throughout this entire process, and they will be on the day of the closing. Once the papers are signed and the funding authorization is received, money is going to be transferred. A lot of this is done behind the scenes without you even knowing about it. He'll just tell you he's going to be doing these things. Your attorney will tell you when everything is done and you can enter the house. At that point, congratulations, you're a homeowner. You've done a great job. You've made it through the maze of real estate, and you now own your own home. After the closing, the attorney's going to wrap up the paperwork. They're going to file the deed with the town on the land records, and then once that comes back from the town, they'll provide you with that original as well. Keep that original deed and the title insurance policy that you bought. Keep those in a safe place in case you ever need them. That's the home buyer's experience from start to finish. I hope you got some value out of it. Please share this with friends and family who may need it. An important note, every state has different laws, different procedures, different practices. So although what I'm talking about applies in Connecticut and is tuned for Connecticut, the general process does apply across the board. Again, hopefully this is helpful. Have a great day.